Thank you. Okay, now we move to we move back to the Cranford matter, which is item 21. So back to item 21, and we adjourned for lunch midway through this, and councillors were in the process of working up an amendment to the recommendation. Where did we get to with wording on that amendment?
We didn't. We didn't get, is that, or did you want to speak to that, Brendan?
All right, so maybe we can hear from staff first of all then. So Brendan, do you want to just take us through any further developments since we broke for lunch?
Yeah, sure. Rich and I, we've assumed that most of the kind of technical questions, of which there have been many, particularly about the hydrology situation of Cranford and the consequences and implications of what this decision that is now in front of council has mostly been addressed. But so prior to lunch, Councillor Johansson introduced a proposed draft amendment which was needing some work on. In the questioning, particularly of Brent, who's rejoined us, just to reiterate or to summarise where we got up to. So at the very first point, I think it's important that councillors are aware of the requirement in the Act, the Greater Christchurch Regeneration Act, that the regeneration plan must remain consistent with the outline plan, and this isn't a showstopper by any stretch of the imagination, and Brent's advice to you was very clear. I would simply point out that that's part of your consideration about ensuring that the final plan remains consistent with the draft. We didn't include specifics such as affordability in the draft, but Brent's advice to you that you can make such changes still stands. And then once we're kind of just over that procedural issue, the other advice that you received was kind of materiality, the materiality in terms of what's being proposed to or trying to be achieved through the proposed amendment was to introduce at least a proportion of the homes which, if built, if the plan is approved in Cranford, would be affordable of some description. And the advice from staff was very clear on that. We've been very clear that Cranford, in terms of the land conditions, is constrained, which means that the development costs are already going to be relatively high for such land. Equally, the plan has always been consistent in that we're seeking high environmental outcomes in terms of the sustainability of the development. Just to put that all together, we've got constrained land that has quite high development costs. We're after high quality environmentally sustainable housing, to then also add now at the 11th hour condition of affordability, in the opinion of staff, will make that virtually impossible to get off the ground. And the basis for that is the exemplar projects that we have sought to deliver over the last couple of years under the Land Use Recovery Program and others that have sought to both seek very strong environmental outcomes and affordability, haven't been probably exaggerating to use the word successful, but haven't delivered on the outcomes that we've been seeking. So to balance those two, and then also try and do that on land that has significant development requirement to go into it, on staff advice is that that won't be achievable. And I just want to take that one step further. The consequence of that may well be unintentioned, but it might mean that the developments then don't go ahead, which means that what we're seeking to try and achieve in the very first instance of intensification in an area within a couple of hundred metres of Northlands, serviced by strong transport linkages on the cycleways, isn't achieved, which then the the consequence of that is that you start looking at greenfields opportunities, and you get to the situation that Richard was describing, that rather than intensification, you end up with a sprawling city. So we simply think it's important to step through those implications for councillors so that you're aware, because we haven't been able to have any consideration or debate about what the implication of including affordability in this condition is, but in the time available we have wanted to bring to your attention that there are some significant consequences that you'll want to bear in mind in your consideration. Notwithstanding that, we do have a staff suggestion if you are seeking to continue with the proposed amendment, and I think Chris might be able to put that up. Section 8.2.2 of the draft Cranford Regeneration Plan, so that's the section that refers to the instrument that we would seek to execute with the developers, be amended to include, to make reference to affordable housing.
Okay, so we've got two different potential amendments, or two suggestions for amendments in front of us here, one of which is shown here has been moved by Yanni, that staff seek through a memorandum of understanding to achieve a percentage of the uplift to be used by the council for social or affordable housing. So presumably there what we mean is a percentage of any uplift in land value.
I struggled to interpret exactly what that resolution was seeking to achieve, but Councillor Johansson might want to enlighten us.
Yeah, absolutely. We just sorry, we just heard that sections are selling for huge amounts of money in this area. So to me it seems perfectly reasonable. I think Councillor Livingston had a suggestion that we should define affordable housing by the council's description of affordable housing, which I would agree with.
Yeah. I'll come to this in debate, but that's not the only issue I have.
What I'm keen to do, though, if we're going to have a amendment which is going to be capable of being moved and seconded, we need to know what the wording of that is going to be. So, Yanni, the wording that you're wanting to put forward is the wording we've got here. My suggestion was that we just specify a little bit more clearly a percentage of any uplift in land value.
Sure.
Just so that it's clear what we, when we say uplift, what we're actually referring to.
Yeah, and yep.
So
and
a percentage of any uplift in land value. Yeah.
And just remove the word seek.
And remove the word seek.
Yeah.
Okay. And we would also then remove the word to, I would imagine, as well. Okay.
What you were saying, Brendan, that's not doable?
That's not a staff suggestion. When I read that, so through a memorandum of understanding, we seek to achieve a percentage of any uplift in land value. So I understand that the concept of value capture to be used by the council for social or affordable housing. When I read that verbatim there, that sounds as though that we would effectively tax profit on a land, and we would use that anywhere for social or affordable housing.
So if there was a 5 times increase in land value as a result of rezoning, the council would take a small percentage of it and use it anywhere for social or affordable housing.
I think we're both asking the same question, but
yep.
I can't answer that question.
So my question was what you were saying before, is that that's not doable, or is it doable?
Oh, I don't believe that will be doable through a memorandum of understanding.
Because a memorandum of understanding would require to be signed by both parties. Yeah. And the expectation, I assume, would be that a developer wouldn't voluntarily sign a memorandum of understanding to be effectively taxed by council when that wasn't a requirement if they didn't.
That would be a fair assumption, I would have thought.
Yeah. Okay. So, Yanni, this is what you're wanting to move?
Yep.
Yep, okay. Is there a seconder for this? Okay, so this will lapse for want of a seconder. So that now leaves us there's a staff suggestion that section 8.2.2 of the draft Cranford Regeneration Plan is amended to make reference to affordable housing. Now, in as much as staff are putting this forward, I'm assuming that this is doable and it is a way that you can see that we might be able to weave the context of affordable housing into this document?
I don't think it's staff role to suggest an amendment. The staff recommendation's already there, so if a councillor wanted to make a proposed amendment, we were simply trying to make doable the proposed amendment slightly higher.
Yep.
So
okay.
is this doable?
When you say doable, we can put it with the developer's agreement into a memorandum of understanding. Does it lead to affordable housing? For the reasons that I've outlined earlier, I don't think this is your best bet for affordable housing.
So when you say make reference to affordable housing, what does that actually mean?
Well, we're trying to make sure that we don't sink the entire arrangement by those type inclusions. So staff have been pretty clear on our advice on whether this is a good location for affordable housing.
But we weren't suggesting that it had to be in this location.
Well, again, that comes back to almost the proposed amendment above. That's a tax on someone making profit to deliver somewhere else across the city.
Okay, so as a matter of process then, what we've got in front of us now is the original recommendation, paragraphs 1 and 2. We've had a proposed amendment which failed for want of a seconder. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Oh, they're already moved. So that's already moved and seconded? And that's a long time in our world. Okay.
Can I just check then? So the staff response to the submissions that asked for affordable housing and housing choice is what exactly?
So as Brendan alluded to, we think that there's real issues with getting affordable housing in this location. In addition, when you take the development constraints, in addition to the sustainability criteria we've introduced into the outline development plan, put 2 and 2 together, it's very difficult for you to get affordable housing when you do that.
Do we see that there's anything in there around affordable housing? Like, is there any sort of idea that the regeneration should include regeneration of all types of housing options and choices for people?
I'm not aware of anything, but I guess what this would go back to is when we did do the draft outline, if we wanted affordable housing as part of the criteria that was going to stem from this regeneration plan, we should have sought it then. So the difficulty is introducing something at a late stage which is not in the outline. But I don't think there's anything in the Act which refers to that. It does refer to, the Act does refer broadly to social and economic and other type factors, but I don't think it gets specific in terms of affordability of housing.
All right, thank you, Glenn.
Perhaps I could add to that. The Act doesn't require that every regeneration plan includes affordable housing. That's not a requirement of the Act.
Okay, Glenn.
Thank you. There's an issue I can't get past, and it's this one on page 211 in 7.4, which is actually under alternative option 1, not submit the draft plan for review, and it reads, this option would be consistent with the current position of Ngāi Tahu, which is to oppose the draft plan until an alternative to Horseshoe Lake, the discharge stormwater, is made available. So my question is, why would we proceed with an option that actually opposes the position of Ngāi Tahu, our partner?
Sure, and it's similar to the question that you had asked earlier on, that the Act doesn't require all Section 29 partners, including Ngāi Tahu, to be in agreement with the proposal of any proponent. In fact, what the requirement on Regenerate Christchurch is to consider the views of all proponents. So what the council does as the proponent of this plan, in addition to submitting the plan, we also provide a summary to Regenerate Christchurch of the views of the strategic partners under the Greater Christchurch Regeneration Act. And in this case, we simply say, to paraphrase, that Ngāi Tahu doesn't support the plan for the reason that they can't support, their advice to us is they can't support discharges into Horseshoe Lake. That's not a decision that the council is being asked to make, that's a decision that Regenerate Christchurch must make under the statute, and equally in recommending it to the Minister for approval, that the Minister will take into consideration.
Thank you. That actually tells me a lot about the Act and its view on our relationship as a partner over equity.
Okay. Given that we already had gone through questions and answers before we got to moving and seconding and coming into debate and having an amendment and that process, I'm assuming that there aren't going to be more questions at this stage. So the original recommendation, as in the agenda that we have brought to the meeting, has been moved and seconded. Is there any debate on that? Okay, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Okay, that's carried. Did those who voted no want their votes recorded against? Okay, so that's Glenn, Phil, Pauline and Dion, and Yanni voted against. And that's carried. Thank you.